Welcome to the new JFK show number 259. And we've taken a little break from you know what. So it's been 3 months. Our last show was John Barber and Jasper Garrison. And we're back in earnest. And in case you didn't know, in JFK, there was something called that Puerto Rico thing. And Larry Rivera's here to explain just what Puerto Rico had to do with JFK. And you have to admit, it doesn't come off that often as far as knowledge about how they pulled it off as far as Cuba and Puerto Rico. So we're going to turn it over to Larry, and welcome back, fellas, to a show that's really at the top of the thing, top of the pops. So
go for it, Larry. I've made you host.
Yeah, it's been a while, guys. Welcome back, I guess. And we've been working for a couple of years now. Wow, since 2017 on the new documents. Since 2017, that's a long time already. When the new documents came out in the summer of 2017, and we started to go and we dove into those and found out that they were not searchable, and we went through all that hullabaloo and whatever, and then finally, in 2018, Donald Trump was pressured into releasing, whatever was left. However, there was still, some files left over that have not been released on account of national security, which I don't know, 50. How many years has it been since the assassination?
53?
A long time. And it's still 57. A problem of national security and the means and methods of intelligence agencies. I don't know how that could, be a problem, since now everything is electronic, but anyway, I guess there's still people alive, that could be affected by the revelations, that are in those files that are still tucked away there at the National Archives. But what's the panorama that is, unfolding here based on the new documents has a lot to do with Puerto Rico. And we're going to just, in the past, I think right after the documents came out, it was August 2017, before the hurricanes in Puerto Rico, we did a couple of shows on Skewer One, who turned out to be an ex-governor of Puerto Rico, who was Cuban, half Puerto Rican, whose family had migrated from Cuba in the early 20th century. Ferré, the family Ferré, Luis Ferré, and which I did a presentation in Washington, the big event in March of 2018. And that's when I first brought out the information that was in the new files on the identity of Skewer One, being a CIA asset, an industrialist individual who had inherited, all these companies who were involved in steel and cement and construction in Puerto Rico. And then they went into the publishing business. They bought a newspaper called El Dia, The Day. And then, with all the diversifying into a lot of different areas of construction, they came to dominate and to make quite a lot of money in Puerto Rico. And as power comes, well, they were obviously very concerned when, and especially them being half Cuban, half Puerto Rican, with the situation in Cuba with Fidel Castro. And the Skewer One turns out to be Luis A. Ferré, who later on in 1968 becomes governor of Puerto Rico. But before that, he is involved with the CIA as a major asset. He, like I said, he went to school at MIT. He graduated, and I'm going to show a couple of images here of his upbringing and his education and his background and everything. He played piano. In Puerto Rico, you've got concert halls named after him, expressways named after him. But lo and behold, the guy was a CIA asset.
Oh, no, not again.
And only now, with these documents that came out, are we realizing the importance of Skewer One Luisa Ferré, and you know, as a means of comparison, we've had this situation with the Mexican presidents, okay, who were also CIA assets. So there is a pattern here, Jim and Gary, where the CIA is in control of the top dogs of each of these countries, you know, Mexico and Puerto Rico. And so very important countries, you know, when the Cuban crisis situation comes up, you know, in 1959, when Fidel Castro takes over, and you know, how now all of a sudden you have communism at the back door of the United States, only 100 miles away from Key West, you know, in Florida, you know, and so, and how this is, you know, the preamble to a domino effect where this could happen to all of Central America and the rest of the Caribbean and the other countries, which was what was being promoted at the time. Okay, so
official story.
Well, yeah, I know it's it's crazy, isn't it? So with that being said, I'll do a quick screen share and go over. First, I'm going to go over Luis Ferré, and then I'm going to go and delve into the situation with Muñoz Marin, Luis Muñoz Marin, for whom the international airport in Puerto Rico is named, who was the father of democracy in Puerto Rico. Okay. And some of the revelations and situations with him are just as incredibly astonishing, you know, as with Luis Ferré. And you know, what's so sad about this is that in Puerto Rico, nobody even talks about this. You know, it's like the ostrich, you know, and in the sand, you know, hiding its head, you know, doesn't even want to learn about its history and its real history. And a very, very sad situation, Jim, there, you know, and all this stuff that I'm going to talk about here is completely backed up with documents, newly declassified documents. So without...
Not to mention the devastation of the hurricane, Larry. I mean, if they weren't getting their history before that, it's
Let me first, let me see what I'm not seeing. Hold on. Bear with me real quick here. Are you seeing this yet?
not yet.
Right.
No, we're not seeing the screen share.
As we are.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that.
Just before you get going, I do have a CIA document that deals with erasure of history of different countries. Just to let you know.
Yep, we got it, Larry.
All right.
History of
we did this, oh my God, 3 years ago, we did this now. But it continues, it's still in flux. It continues to be developed, you know, with the other documents. And basically, Luis Ferré, and then later on we had another show where Luis Ferré was involved with the Odios, Sylvia Odio in particular, where he was her sponsor, okay, and he was involved in keeping her isolated, so to speak, from especially after the JFK assassination, and the family also, because of the importance of what Sylvia Odio had to say. I want to remind everybody that Sylvia Odio was involved in an incident with 3 guys that visited her on September the 27th September 1963, when Lee Oswald was supposed to be in Mexico City, which was the official version, which we have already trashed as completely false. And now Sylvia Odio's testimony and her recollection of events takes on new meaning. But Sylvia Odio was very important in all this, because she and the Ferré family knew each other from before Fidel Castro, so they had a relationship there. And so Skewer
this happened
One.
in Dallas. Yeah, the
Huh?
event happened. It happened in Dallas when
That's right.
Sylvia Odio met someone that was Lee
Three,
Osborne.
yeah, three guys. One of them said that he had been in contact with her father, who at the time was in prison. Fidel Castro had him and his mother. They had 10 siblings, the Odios, and as soon as Castro took over, they all went to different places in the U.S. and but they were, you know, very much in touch with each other and their father, and that's when these three guys showed up at Sylvia's doorstep there to see if she could help, you know, writing letters to promote, you know, the cause, you know, and then when as soon as it happened, Sylvia wrote her father, who was in prison in Cuba, and he said, no, you know, I don't know anybody, and anybody that comes over to you saying that they know me, you know, that's complete bull crap, you know. So anyway, Sylvia and the Ferré family, the Odios and the Ferré family knew each other from before in Cuba. So when Sylvia first left Cuba after Fidel Castro, she ends up in Ponce, and then Ferré makes arrangements to take her to Dallas with a family called Rogers, who were involved also in the cement industry in Dallas. So anyway, to make a long story short, Ferré was very much involved in the anti-Castro movement and helping the anti-Castro, all of the different organizations, to use Puerto Rico as a base, you know, to attack Fidel Castro in different ways and manners, you know. And I mean, you had Veciana, Gutierrez Menoyo, you had Manuel Rai, all these people, and they just like lined up, you know, to go and see this, and that's why I call him the Godfather. You know, it's like the image that I see here is this guy, you know, and people coming and kissing his hand and his, you know, and as the Godfather, and that's who Skewer One was, you know, in my mind, you know. And here's, for example, here's a portion of this 201 file that shows that he was an MIT graduate, 1924, mechanical engineer, with a master's in 1925. Then he goes back to Puerto Rico, and he actually takes over the family business, which had diversified into, like I said, ironworks, railroad construction, cement, especially cement in Puerto Rico, you know, and those type of industries, and a newspaper, which was very important because they were in a position to influence public opinion of the masses. All right. So, you know, being like, you know, in this position, they had a lot of power, you know. And for example, even Skewer One, his interest was not only confined to Cuba, he also had an extreme interest in the problems of the Dominican Republic and the threats of communism there, where this cable explains his posture and gives the reader an idea of the vast economic resources that he possessed. And we run into this cable. It says, Skewer One, he was considering the construction of 2 sizable plants, one cement and one glass, in the Dominican Republic as a means of augmenting official assistance through private enterprise, and asked blank. I mean, if this guy is just a run-of-the-mill industrialist, you know, entrepreneur, why all these, you know, redactions, you know, in these, you know, of the venture blank, that this was a personal decision for Skewer One to make. He felt that it was imperative for all free nations of the hemisphere to do all in their power to help the Dominican Republic become a true democracy and to deny it to the communists. I mean, this is heavy duty stuff. This guy's a major player in the Caribbean, you know, because he's got a lot of money. Okay, his family has been dominating, you know, industry in Puerto Rico for 50 years, almost 50 years at this time. We're talking about the 20s, you know, all the way to the 60s, you know, at least 40 something years. Okay, but you know, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This cable, dated 7 December 1961, reports Ferré as really interested in Cuban affairs. His involvement is described in detail. Okay, now there's a fellow here that is mentioned as Cable Cisneros, was actually Rogelio Cisneros, who was with Manuel Rai in Jure, which was an organization that came out and you know, trying to do this anti-revolutionary, anti-Castro movement here, and actually send and accumulate weapons, arms, boats, planes, you know, everything, all the hardware needed to reinvade Cuba, you know, especially after the Bay of Pigs debacle there. So this one is very interesting because, you know, it tells you what Skewer 1, you know, was really into. And this initial meeting, this Carnley, well, I'll tell you later on, Patrick Carnley was the San Juan head of the CIA in San Juan. Okay, and he was in this meeting here, and they're talking about the Cuban affairs that he is so intensely interested. And discussion touched off by S1, means Skewer 1, announcement that he had just been paid a visit by Cisneros, who alleged to be a new general coordinator of MRP, Movimiento Revolucionario. Okay, this led to lengthy discussion with Manuel Rai, okay, who is the man he was first with MRP, and then he founded Jure, Jure, and all these organizations were very militaristic, and they were very much involved in trying to actually, you know, land troops and forces in Cuba and try to, you know, confront Fidel Castro, even though they knew they were not being supported by the U.S. Military. And so this one here is very, very interesting because Ferré donations to Diaz-Lanz, Pedro Diaz-Lanz was an anti-Castro revolutionary. Conte Agüero supposedly funded boat operation sorties into Cuba. This is out of Puerto Rico, something that even Miami's JM Wave thought should be independently confirmed. And that this is what is encompassed here in this cable. And this is, I believe this is dated what, December 7, 1961. Okay, and S1 has also been giving support to such people as Diaz-Lanz, Conte Agüero. S1 says recently gave financial support to Diaz-Lanz in connection with boat operations, which Diaz-Lanz claims he operated into Cuba. Okay, so again, he is a major player. And then in investigating these documents, which mentioned as Patrick Carnley, we inadvertently stumbled upon a pseudonym used by William Harvey, William King Harvey, the William King Harvey. Okay, and that's Willard Nauman. An interesting detail being that chief of station in Mexico City, Win Scott, went by the pseudonym Willard Curtis. I mean, you can't just make this up, Jim and Kerry. Willard Nauman is William Harvey, and I'm going to show you the documents that show that. And Win Scott goes by the pseudonym of Willard Curtis. You know, I mean, these guys, you know. So anyway,
tell us a little bit about William Harvey, how on the deathbed confession of Howard Hunt.
Yeah, and so TFW is the initials for Task Force W, which means West, and it was led by William K. Harvey until 1963. Okay, with and again Willard Nauman, and it's all over the new documents. So when we go and we declassify this cable here, which has to do with Skewer 1, you know, I mean, he was up with he was in the big leagues, big time, okay? And here we have William K. Harvey, also known as William Nauman, meeting with Skewer 1, and what they're talking about here is how they're gonna deal with this Manuel Rai, who, and Manuel Rai was actually the next in line, you know, if Fidel Castro was toppled, Manuel Ray was the first guy that everybody wanted to support to go and be the president of Cuba. Okay, and that was in the early 60s. All right, and so the initial the following summarizes Naumann and Carnley July 6th meeting with Ferré. Okay, then here would have been Skewer 1. Okay, who selected as most suitable channel established Naumann contact with Ray. Okay, Manuel Ray. The initial discussion centered on Ray activities and particularly current reports of a Muñoz Figueres Betancourt support of Ray. Now, Muñoz was a governor of Puerto Rico. Figueres was the president of Costa Rica, and Betancourt was Romulo Betancourt, president of Venezuela. So it's like a triumvirate, you know, there's in support of Ray, which had received some recent press treatment here and with which Ferré well acquainted. So from Puerto Rico, you know, they are creating, you know, this mechanism here on who and how they're going to replace Fidel Castro. Okay, while Ferré offered no hard evidence, Muñoz, the governor of Puerto Rico et al., actively projecting Ambang. Okay, I missed this one. Ambang is the cryptonym for Manuel Ray, element into future Cuban political order, considers these allegations extremely credible. Okay, referred fact, Ambang, I missed this one also, political philosophy greatly coincide this group, liberal leaders, and also alluded to similarity, Muñoz advocacy, Ambang 1, which is Manuel Ray, to treatment according to Betancourt, while he awaiting turn of political tide in Venezuela. Ferré intends, however, maintain contact with Ambang 1, which is Ray, as he does with many Cubans, and expect he continue to be available source. Ferré then readily agreed to set up a Naumann-Ray meeting. Naumann, again, is King Harvey.
Yeah.
Meeting in manner and look at this, not to divulge agency connection of Ferré, okay? When place calls to arrangement, however, learned that Ambang Ray, departing from San Juan from Miami, was unable effect introduction Naumann prior to Ray departure. Ray will return San Juan. In Ferré attempt arranged meeting, one of telephone calls which of special. Okay. Ray was in Washington 2 weeks ago for a discussion with group. Okay, so basically what the point of bringing this here is that this is the cable that tells us that Willard Naumann was William K. Harvey, and I'm going to show you here. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, I just switched to another document.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so right here, Chief TFW. Okay, that we just talked about. Okay. Attention, Willard R. Naumann. Okay.
We know as William Harvey.
And what now we know is William Harvey, because the only person who was chief of TFW, okay, Tactical Forces Out West, was William Harvey. So attention to William Naumann, and this is the one, and nobody in JFK has ever made this connection, Jim. Okay, so forwarded here with an envelope for Willard Naumann, which contains memorandum for the record prepared at the station. The memorandum contains some notes on Manuel Ray, which it is thought would be of particular interest to Naumann. Okay, now you go further down, and again, Chief of TFW, attention William R. Naumann, and it comes from Chief of Station San Juan, who's currently, okay, and then the memorandum goes on and on about Manuel Ray, okay? So this is the one, Patrick R. Carnley, who was the CIA, head of the CIA in Puerto Rico at the time. So this is the one document that tells us that William K. Harvey used this cryptonym of Willard R. Naumann. Now that you have that information, now you can go and search all the documents that mention Willard R. Naumann and look at his involvement in this whole scheme here, okay? and what type of control he had on the situation there with Cuba. And I'm gonna go on here quickly. Okay, now that, can you see this, Puerto Rico's role
Yes.
in the Anti-Castro movement? Yeah. Okay, now this one really pissed me off because, you know, it obviously hits close to home. But maybe Jim can help us out here. And
Puerto Rico's role in the anti-Castro movement. The declassified documents released in 2017 and 2018 painted a subordinate picture of Puerto Rico turning the island into a base of operations for many anti-Castro Cuban exile organizations, which undoubtedly took advantage of Puerto Rico's colonial status, where the government could not resist the whims of the CIA's obsession with Fidel Castro and his communist control over Cuba. As developed in the previous chapter, industrialist Luis Ferré, who doubled the CIA asset Skewer 1 and whose family migrated from Cuba to Puerto Rico in the early 1900s, was a very important financier of those groups whom the CIA deemed valuable in the never-ending quest to take back Cuba from the communists. Ferré covertly helped many entities and individuals and insisted his real name never be brought up in these projects. The new documents, however, identify the government of Puerto Rico, led by Governor Luis Munoz Marin, as the main contributor to these efforts. Munoz Marin was the first democratically elected Puerto Rican governor in 1948, and by 1960 was serving his 4th term. The previous chapter mentioned a triumvirate of Munoz Marin, Orlando Figueras, and Romulo Betancourt of Venezuela, trying to groom Manuel Rey Rivero as a successor to Fidel Castro once the Cuban government was overthrown by the counter-revolutionary forces in exile backed by the CIA.
Now this, here what I've inserted here is this comes out of the actual House Select Committee on Assassinations report by Gaten Fonzie, okay? And I wanna just, because at that time, they didn't have the documents that we have now, okay? So what I'm inserting here is an example here, as it says here, although, okay, here. Although there is no evidence that the Puerto Rican government was supporting the MRP, Rye was looked upon with great favor by Puerto Rican officials, and he endeavored to rebuild the MRP with Cuban exiles residing there. Okay, and this is Gaten Fonzie, okay? And he's saying there was no evidence that the Puerto Rican government was supported by the MRP. That is not, now with the new, I mean, you gotta laugh.
Yeah.
You know, now with the new documents, okay? Now let's continue on here.
Author Nelson A. Dennis describes how compromised Munoz Marin was with the FBI's J. Edgar Hoover, where Hoover personally intervened to make sure that Munoz was made aware of who his master was as he opened a secret file on Munoz to add to the many secret files Hoover accumulated over the years of politicians and any citizen whom he would consider a threat to the power of his seat of government. The following excerpt from FBI Executive Conference File 662554, section page 68 explains, assistance to the director and assistant directors, but I do not believe it is sufficient that the policies and procedures of the Bureau be understood only by this rather limited group. It is properly handle at the work of the seat of government. To properly handle the work at the seat of government, I believe it's very necessary that all supervisors stationed at the seat of government, which is, of course, what Hoover designated the FBI as. So
that's right. That's right.
Be called in for conference from time to time and explain to them for their information and guidance the various policies and procedures. Such conferences would also be helpful in obtaining ideas and views of their supervisor, which would be beneficial to a more smooth running operation of the Bureau at the seat of government.
It didn't matter what presidents came and went, you know, but
that's right. That's how Hoover viewed it. Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to have such conferences initiated on a regular schedule and a report submitted to me relative to them that after each conference has been held. I believe the same sort of conferences should be held by the assistant to the director in charge of administration with the assistant directors and supervisors under his supervision, so they may likewise understand the general policies and procedures of the Bureau in administrative matters and a general idea of the investigative procedures and policies. Very truly yours, John Edgar Hoover, Director.
So now Nelson Dennis continues about all the dirt that they found on Luis Muñoz Marin.
Then they struck gold on April 1st, 1943. Hoover received multiple reports from reliable informants that Luis Muñoz Marin was a narcotics addict. In addition, a supplemental report showed he was known as El Moto de la Salsa Verde, the junkie of Salsa Verde, and that he'd been involved in an important narcotics case, but nothing was done inasmuch as Muñoz Marin would fire all members of the Insular Government Narcotics Bureau if prosecution were even contemplated. According to this report, the Customs Service, U.S. Treasury Department, San Juan, Puerto Rico, have been informed of the existence of Muñoz Marin's participation in the narcotics case. Hoover finally had some real dirt, and now Muñoz Marin exactly where he wanted him. Muñoz Marin was an addict, he'd been caught in a narcotics deal, and he'd used his public office to bury the entire matter. The FBI had no desire to investigate further or to prosecute Muñoz Marin's narcotics case, because with this report and all it implied, addiction, drug sales, obstruction of justice, the FBI could end his career at any time. As the following sequence of events make clear, this one-page report turned the political leader of Puerto Rico into a U.S. sock puppet.
That's incredible. And this is the report.
Wow.
That's right. From 1940 on, he knew who his master was, in this report here, which was uncovered by this author, Nelson Dennis. And, right here at the end, in fact, if you read Dennis's book, it's just disgusting because he found out a lot of details of Muñoz Marin's life, early life in New York City, and in Washington. His father, Luis Muñoz Rivera, had been a ardent, I'm big time independence advocate, seeking independence for Puerto Rico. And when the U.S. took over Puerto Rico in 1898, briefly Puerto Rico was given their independence, but then they were included in that booty that included the Philippines and Guam, as the properties now of the United States of America. Obviously with Cuba, and what happened, with Teddy Roosevelt there and the Rough Riders and how they had defeated the Spanish, and then the Spanish, after what happened in Cuba, said, well, we're out of here, we're out of the Caribbean. And that's when Puerto Rico was defeated from the Spaniards without even a shot being fired, And so anyway, this is history, and Muñoz Marin's father took him to New York, and then with his wife, and he was there for a while. And then after that, Muñoz Rivera, his father, was appointed as resident commissioner, which is sort of like a congressman, Puerto Rico, appointed to Puerto Rico, but who does not vote. All he does is he can attend congressional meetings, maybe they put him in some kind of committees or whatever, but they do not hold a vote at all. But then his wife dies. They divorce, and Muñoz Rivera dies, and then his mother takes him to New York, where he, goes to school, and he then later on, he stays in New York for a while, and he lives in New York for about 15 years. And there he becomes this bohemian type of individual, publishing magazines and articles. I'm talking about Luis Muñoz Marin, and getting involved in the Greenwich Village scene there, and becoming a narcotics opium addict who would frequent the opium dens there in Chinatown. and actually lived that type of life, you know. And at the time, he also married this woman and had a couple of children, and he abandoned the woman, he abandoned the children, you know. He went back to Puerto Rico for a while, went back to New York, going back and forth, you know. So this is, you know, and he was a very, very heavy drinker also to boot. So this is a type of man that is being groomed to be, you know, to lead Puerto Rico, you know, after they decide to stop the string of U.S. governors. Puerto Rico had U.S. governors up until 1948, from 1898 to 1948, you know, and in the process, they established, you know, that Spanish would not be taught in schools at all in the early 1900s, and they abolished Spanish as a language in public schools in Puerto Rico.
Really?
And, oh yeah, oh yeah, and so you know, but then when you have the type of culture and language history that Puerto Rico has had since 1492, when Columbus, you know, 1493, when Columbus discovered Puerto Rico, okay, and colonized, and then they colonized, the Spaniards colonized the island, and they had maintained control over the island for 400 years. And Spanish and the culture had been, you know, embedded there for so long that there's just no way that you were going to impose, like they did in Hawaii, like they did in Guam, the English language onto the Puerto Rican society and the Puerto Rican culture. It just would never happen. So that's what happens here. And as a result, well, I'm not even going to go into the Jones Act, you know, where Puerto Ricans were made American citizens right in time to fight in the World War I, okay, and be cannon fodder, you know, so to speak. And then, you know, the way that multinational corporations took over the land to create the monocultural situation there of sugarcane, to raise sugarcane, you know, for sugar and export, you know, on a much, much smaller scale, obviously, than Cuba, because Cuba has, you know, 5 times the land that Puerto Rico has. But you know, where all of this cauldron, you know, is boiling over, you know, with the nationalists and the independence advocates, you know, where in 1940, in the 1940s, Puerto Rico was actually given, you know, they were, the vote went to Congress, and they voted to give Puerto Rico their independence. And then that came out, that was completely eliminated and forgotten about. And so Muñoz Marín in 1940 comes and he runs for the Senate, and lo and behold, he's elected to the Senate, and he becomes the president of the Senate. And from there on, his political career completely takes off, but it's because he is backed by the U.S., you know. And at the time, Muñoz Marín had been an independence advocate 100%. And then obviously with this going on here, where he becomes the puppet of the U.S., he completely forgets and eliminates, you know, that ideology, okay? And he is for making arrangements with the U.S. to continue the relationship and bringing and brainwashing, you know, the populace there, that they could not survive without the United States, you know, as their main ally. And that continues on to this day, I must say. But then here where we continue here with Nelson Dennis.
By 1948, Muñoz Marin's transformation into a U.S. puppet was complete. He told reporters that the only serious defect in U.S.-Puerto Rico relations was the law preventing the island from refining its own sugar. Also in 1948, he convened an emergency legislative session and passed Public Law 53, the gag law, Ley de la Mordaza, which was almost identical to the U.S. Smith Act. As previously discussed, the law made it a felony to own or display a Puerto Rican flag, even in one's home, to speak in favor of Puerto Rican independence, to print, publish, sell, or exploit any material that might undermine the insular government, and to organize any society, group, or assembly of people with a similar intent. Within 2 years, Manus Marin had used Law 53 to arrest over 3,000 people without evidence or due process and to imprison some of them for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
The island newspapers immediately protested against Law 53 as a threat to freedom of the press and of speech. They even convened a protest assembly on May 25th, 1948, sponsored by El Imparcial El Mundo El Dia and the president of the press circle, and attended by hundreds of journalists, lawyers, union members, and teachers. When newspapers started calling Lewis a traitor, he responded, "This law is precisely to prevent anyone from gagging the Puerto Rican people through fascist threats of force. I have asked the FBI to enforce it." This was the same FBI that had records of Lewis' own criminal narcotics activity, the same FBI that had him and threw him the entire island on a tight leash.
That's right. And so we come full circle to the 1960s after Cuba, with the Cuban crisis, okay? And what we learn now from the new documents, okay, of what's going on in Puerto Rico and all these new Cuban exiles, you know, populating the island, and how the CIA is organizing, you know, all these groups, and who they're actually jockeying for position, you know, to gain the favor of the CIA, and see who is it that the CIA is going to groom, you know, to take over for Castro, obviously not even in the event, I'm talking about when, you know, Castro is overthrown, okay? Now, this is the one that just blew me away, because in this cable here, we learn that request JM Wave, okay, that's what wave means, obtained from Artime, names of 15 Puerto Ricans he alleges are presently in training in Cuba, okay, something that we had never known about.
Wave is CIA, is it not?
Right, well, yeah, JM Wave is a CIA station in Miami.
Right.
And so now, remember earlier we said that, I mean, the HSCA said that the Puerto Rican government was not supporting, had nothing to do with the anti-Castro Cubans. But then we run into this one here, and it says, paragraph 5, referencing Skewer 1 information on capabilities and intent, referring to Cuban groups considered worthwhile, especially in view, paragraph 2, reference which indicates little or no pressing required. We especially interested in, if any, support being provided MRP by the PR government, suggests Wave consider operational potential of Skewer 1 groups for all types of collateral action. At minimum, feel currently should encourage Skewer 1's exchange opinions and consultations per paragraph 4 above. I mean, paragraph 4 reference coordinating closely with Wave, with JM Wave. And then we have this. Hure, which was the organization that Manuel Ray started in 1962, I believe. And we have this. Hure invasion from Puerto Rico on April 22nd, 1964. Fermín Álvarez Silva told Skewer 1, 29 March, that a Dolores Lolita Cuevas, a close friend who is also close to Governor Muñoz Marín and Manuel Ray, told him they had informed Ray, that Ray had informed her that Hure invasion of Cuba is scheduled for 22 of April. Now, this is Cuban invasion running out of Puerto Rico, okay? And the woman, who may be identical to Lolita Cuevas, okay, told Alvarez Silva she is composing a battle song for you, okay? So then we have this, Caja de Muertos armed cash incident. And this was actually reported in the Miami Herald at the time, okay? And it just so happens that these fishermen were just, you know, fishing there on the south, off the south coast of Puerto Rico, and they run into this enormous cache of weapons and C4 and bazookas and RPGs and you name it. I mean, it's just unbelievable, you know. And how that cache of weapons ended up there, you know, then nobody knows. Okay, so then here, MTOP2 reported conversation be held 26 January with Sergio Sanchez, chief machinist aboard Jure boat, which located Puerto Rico, and Rogelio Cisnero Diaz, coordinator of military action. That's the guy that worked with Manuel Ray, Jure National Executive. Following information learned, Cisneros told Sanchez Odenvi, okay, Odenvi is the FBI, and O'Dirge, I don't know what that is. Puerto Rico picked up Jure arms and modern explosive C3 cached in a place known as Cajón de Muerto in Puerto Rico. Caja, actually, they had it wrong. It was called, it's an island called Caja de Muertos off of Ponce. Cisneros stated cache was made near the coast, and Jure planned to pick it up in their boat and send to Costa Rica. But cache was discovered by fishermen who advised authorities. Authorities immediately checked Jure's boat, but found nothing thanks to quick thinking crew members who threw overboard bases of anti-aircraft guns. I mean, anti-aircraft guns, that's serious firepower there, you know. So Sanchez stated he aboard boat when searched, but had no knowledge of arms found in cache that belonged to Jure. Cisneros stated governor of Puerto Rico called newspapers and informed them he suspected the arms were cached by Cuba, who planned overthrow of Puerto Rican government. This is so outrageous here, Jim. Yeah. You know, this is Muñoz Marin. This is freaking Muñoz Marin, the sock puppet, okay, of the CIA and the FBI and the U.S. government.
Castro is going to invade Puerto Rico, right?
He's turning around this whole thing. He's turning around this whole incident. You know, I mean, you can't make this up, you know. He's turning around the whole incident saying that, oh, it's Fidel who went and he dropped off all that, you know, hardware, you know, and its intention there is to overthrow the Puerto Rican government. I mean, this is outrageous, okay? Cisneros commented that Puerto Rican governor did this to sidetrack FBI and O'Dirge investigations and to eliminate the possibility that AMBAN, who is Manuel Ray, activities being revealed. Cisneros also stated that ODIOC, which is U.S. government, could never touch Jure, that because it located in Puerto Rico and registered in Panama, a named person who is extremely close to Governor of Puerto Rico and bitter enemy of Cuba. That's a smokescreen because Muñoz Marin was not a bitter enemy of Cuba. In fact, he was their puppet there in Puerto Rico. MTOP 2 asked Cisneros why Jure trusted Governor of Puerto Rico. Why do you think? Cisneros replied, Governor, primarily a nationalist, an enemy of his prime imperialist politics and therefore also enemy of Cuba, which is false, who would never have enough money to buy governor's conscience, who appreciate headquarters repeat each quarter comments on accuracy of both statements. So now we come to this. You know, and this one just completely blew me away because they lost the arms cache, okay? And now, how are they going to replace the weapons, okay? And it says here that real objectives of a bond sale, okay? We're talking about a bond sale. This is a public, okay, a government transaction. You know how governments sell bonds to raise money, okay, and then you know as they mature, the bonds, you know, they're paid and whatever, and interest is paid during the time of the bonds that are going back and forth, you know. And it says here that the real objectives of bond sale, promise made to his organization by Governor Muñoz Marin to give double the amount he raised by bond sale. This is to replace, you know, the weapons that were lost, you know, when they were confiscated, okay? And provide cover story for public in order not to reveal sources of income from government governments, Costa Rica, Venezuela, and Puerto Rico. I mean, this is serious stuff here, you know, where you have, you know, it says that that HSCA write-up there by Gate and Fonzie, the Puerto Rican government was not involved in anything that had to do with anti-Castro operations. You know, there's nothing further from the truth here, you know. So that's basically what we have here. You know, it's still being developed, you know, lot of new stuff coming out, especially on the William K. Harvey identity here on the pseudonym, which is brand new. Okay, those people at Black Ops, you know, we beat you to the punch here, you know, and you know how despicable, you know, this situation here with the governor of Puerto Rico being beholden and being blackmailed by the FBI. I mean, this was Hoover's specialty.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, throughout the years. I mean,
yeah, but it was usually sexual blackmail, sexual indiscretions, you know, photographs of a senator in bed.
Like he did with JFK.
But in this case, he used his drug addiction as the leverage.
Yeah, that's right.
At any time.
And he did it with JFK, you know, with his, you know, womanizing, you know, with that German spy, you know, and you know, and all the, you know.
Dr. Professor, when
Gary, stop screen share, Larry, and I'll put all three of us together.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Was it Howard Hunt that said the chain of command went from LBJ to William Harvey?
No, well, it went from Lyndon Johnson to Cordmeyer to the head of the North, you know, who am I thinking, Larry? The head of North.
Phillips?
Yeah, Atlee Phillips, and then to William Harvey, and then down to David Sanchez Morales.
Oh, well, I want to. Oh, okay. Can you?
All over.
William Harvey ran as CIA assassinations worldwide.
Yeah, can you enable the screen share again so I can show you guys something here real quick?
Oh, sure, of course.
Okay, I'll do it. All right. Now, we talked about this before, and I want to touch upon this again, you know, because when the documents first came out, you know, we went crazy, you know, with, you know, the notion of Mexican presidents being CIA assets. All right. So, you know, kept developing this information here, and with the Lienvoy and the Liemti, we've done, you know, so many shows about this. You know, it turns out that these three citizens, okay, were CIA assets from 1958 all the way to 1976, okay, including the time when Lee Oswald supposedly went to the Mexico City to go to the Cuban and Soviet embassies, you know, and so we went ahead and, you know, we kept doing all this research, you know, and it just so happens that even Mexico, they've been looking at the documents and they're going, you know, wait a minute, you know, these guys were real
CIA assets.
Not only that, but, you know, traitors, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Traitors, okay? And this here, where it says the disclosure of these documents would possibly change the history of Mexico. This is Mexican media now realizing, you know, the importance of the new declassified documents as the level of subordination of President Adolfo López Mateos to legendary chief of CIA in Mexico City, Win Scott, is officially revealed, who recruited him as an asset to the agency, as he did with Presidents Gustavo Díaz Ordaz and Luis Echeverría. And all these guys were in bed with the CIA to the point where, you know, here, these are screen grabs, you know, from the report, okay? And top secret, you know, these guys these are their CIA cryptonyms. And then we find this, the Win Scott wedding, we find this video. and we find all three of them here, Echeverría, Díaz Ordaz, and López Mateos, you know, at the reception of when Scott's wedding. And this is Lopez Mateos signing.
Classic photograph, Larry.
Yeah.
Absolutely classic.
Not only that, but that Lopez Mateos stood as his best man, you know, padrino de boda, you know. Yeah, I mean, you know, well, hey, wait a minute, what kind of relationship do you guys have here, you know? And this is Echeverria, you know, so you think Lee Oswald ever had a chance against these behemoths?
Oswald had no chance.
Of course not. And it's obvious that the Mexican government played a crucial role in helping the CIA and FBI make a patsy out of Lee. You know, but the point of all this, okay, is that the CIA went after the biggest, the top dogs, you know, of the governments, okay? Presidents and governors, you know, they didn't mess around with anybody.
Yeah.
And that is how this whole thing, you know, is playing out here, you know, with the new documents. And it's just shocking to me, you know, that, you know.
Larry, you've done another sensational piece of research here. I mean, it's just fascinating. I don't think anyone can believe the detail and thoroughness with which you are examining these matters.
Yeah.
And it's all there. It's all there. You just have to put the pieces, the interlocking pieces of the puzzle, you know.
All right, well, let's go ahead and call it right there. Lee Oswald had about as much chance as I did pulling off 9/11 with my razor knife.
Your box cutter.
All right, this has been JFK show number 259. We'll see you next time.